watch. That is 5 p.m., so I'll go ahead and call this February 28th, 2019 meeting of the Carson City Library Board of Trustees to order. And we can proceed with the roll call.
Chairperson Hayes.
Present.
Vice Chair Long.
Here.
Trustee Patton.
Here.
Trustee Sullinger. Here. Trustee Cranston.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item 2, public comment. If any members of the public wish to address the Library Board of Trustees, now would be the time. Seeing none forthcoming, we'll move on to item 3, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Have all the trustees had an opportunity to review the minutes? And are there any updates or changes that are necessary? If there are none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I did review them. I did not find anything that needed to be changed, so I make a motion that we approve the minutes for the last meeting.
I'll second.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. With that, we'll move on to item 4, the Friends of the Carson City Library report.
Okay, my notice that the report was due for your packet came while I was on vacation, so we didn't make the packet. I just handed out a report to everybody, and I put some in the back. The only thing I have to add to this is that we do have an author coming next week on Thursday at 5:30. His name is Kurt Winans, and he is a local author who has written a mystery called The Fractured Nation, and I believe it's about things going on in the government that shouldn't be, and it's supposed to be the beginning of a series. I don't remember if it was a trilogy or just a series, but, so that's it, and I will not be responsible for these reports from here on out. So, because I am no longer the president of the Friends of the Carson City Library, and it's no longer my responsibility.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Phyllis. With that, we'll move on to item 5, Library Board of Trustees business, starting with item 5A, discussion and possible action to rank library capital improvement projects.
Diane Baker, for the record, interim library director. So you have in your packets the capital improvement projects for the next 5 years from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 24. And we're asking you to take a look and rank the items that we have here, especially the ones for next fiscal year 2020. That would be the two there would be for the public restrooms refurbish, and then the library self-checks. The other items in the list that go further into that 5-year program would be the library auto sorter, which is coming up to its end of life timeframe. It is still functioning fine. It's had a few maintenance and a few fix-its. It's still functioning, but we do need to plan for that time frame coming up. In addition, the library roofing is there. That's also part of Public Works, but we're keeping it in our capital improvement projects, but it's also on Public Works radar screen, so it is in their larger list. And the last thing that we have on there is, you would have seen last year as well, is the library remote branch. This is on here for, we have this listed on a wish list from with the Friends of the Library. They have their gift catalog. It's also here because not only, if the city wants to give us money for the branch, that'd be fine. In addition, there's funds included because the branch, even if it's outside, does need to sit on a level cement pad, so there would be work to have that. And it is also recommended that it be covered like a ramada, and that part would have to be covered by the city as well. So at this point, as you look over these, if there is any questions that you have, I'd be glad to answer them.
What's the end of life on the sorter?
I believe the end of life year is 2021. on that, and that's 10 years. It does not mean it's unsupported. Oh, goodness. There we go. We still have a support maintenance contract, and however, the computers, the laptops that drive it are they Windows 7 or XP? They are like crazy old.
But is there a modern version of the software that you use to interact with it that you could put on like a Windows 10 PC?
We potentially could update the software. I did have a chance to look at the newer version of this product from Envisionware and several others when I was at American Library Association midwinter meeting. And some of the changes and updates that they've done to the machinery itself make it more robust and actually could potentially add some staff portals that would really help. But I think I went beyond your question.
No, yes, you went beyond my question, but that's still good information to have.
Okay.
But it sounds like that's like, if it's still working properly and it has some time left before it's gonna really become an issue versus some of these others, which are issues now, that could probably go
Right.
towards the bottom of the list, in my opinion.
But this is, one of the things with this, as opposed to like the bathrooms, the public restrooms, if something breaks that's city property, there is a fix-it budget. So if something actually busts that way, although this is considered city property, it wasn't purchased with city funds, it was grant funds, and it's likely they wouldn't cover it in the fix-it budget.
Has it been malfunctioning in any way?
And I think it's been functioning. We had some fixing on that. Normal could speak to that.
Yeah, so we did have an issue with some of the rollers. Some of the bands have been breaking. There's been some screws that have been coming loose just because of the repetitious motion, but nothing major. Nothing that can't be fixed. Currently.
And it has like a maintenance plan currently, and that maintenance plan is good for another 2 years?
We purchase a maintenance plan year by year, but it's still, they still plan to offer it.
Okay.
This was on the list the last time this came up, right? That we
Correct.
talked about this.
It was.
Do you know what we prioritized it last time? Just off the top of your head. Because I
I
know the
do
bathrooms
not.
are on there too. And the self-check.
I think because the time frame was longer last time, it wasn't, we had a little further time out. It was a little lower on the list, but
Okay. Yeah, with the exception of a couple items. When did we do this last? A year? Was it a year ago?
correct. There's a capital improvement budget process that precedes the regular budget process in the city. And
Diane, could you speak to how the roof is currently holding up? I know that we have had some work done on that, but, I mean, when we get rain, is it still a forest of buckets around?
there. It is this winter, and, since they did the last fix on it, it has been doing very well. And it's the first time since I've been here, and for many years before that, there were always some level of leaks. So at the moment, things are going well. So it isn't, there are no immediate leaks to deal with at this point.
So just from what we've done in the past, like, I'm just gonna throw it out here so everybody can get started. I think it should be in the order of the restrooms, the self-checkout, and the auto sorter, and the rest. The roofing, remote branch, and 24-hour library.
Could I just ask, do you have a location in mind for the remote branch?
We didn't have a final location. We had considered the southern part of Carson City as a location and potentially working with other city properties in that area, such as Roscoe Park, or having it in another city located area with, potentially at the fire station nearby that. So we would already be on city property and not have to look for property to put it on.
I think it's down the south.
So I agree about the roof needing to go, or not the roof, sorry, the bathrooms needing to be fixed up. I would say after that, self-checkout. I don't feel that the sorter needs to, it sounds like it's still working, and with the maintenance plan, it doesn't sound like it needs to be replaced so immediately. And if we do this again in a year, it can be high on the list then. If the roof is holding up, roof can be down there. Remote checkout sounds, I mean, not the remote checkout, excuse me, the remote location sounds awesome, in my opinion, and I'd like to see that get done, so that's pretty high on my list.
I'm with you on that because we didn't get our mega library, and the whole point was to serve a larger part of the city. That'd be a good way to go.
So does this mean that you've all given up on a new building here in this area? Or a larger building?
For the next year, yes.
Well, these aren't all going to get done in this next year anyhow.
No, that's correct, Phyllis. This does go out for a number of years. And we are really looking forward to the information that we get as part of the strategic planning and to see what comes out of that and the appetite for a new building, whether it's a replacement or in a different location or potentially a branch on that. So we definitely do not have the door shut on that, but want to hear where the community stands on that part. So this is something we visit every year. So if we get some, just, an overwhelming tide for pursuing a capital project with a new building or some aspect of renovation, you will see it.
Right, because as I understand it, that has to go to the taxpayers. And so we're going to wait for what's going on with the strategic planning process to see whether or not that's something that the community's clamoring for. Is that?
That is the likely path it would take unless we did have a major donor. And honestly, the original library and the two-story addition were essentially very little city funding in them. That was from major foundation monies.
So as far as the remote branch location being on the wish list, do we know how much progress we have on that, if anything?
Unfortunately, we have no progress on anything that's on that list.
It looks like from the picture, the remote branch is a freestanding unit, is that correct?
Correct. It's an automatic, it's 24 hours where an individual can come up at any time to return books or to check books out, or do both.
The point is, you can move it or sell it if we get our big library. Is that correct?
Potentially, the unit could be sold. They are pretty heavy, so I mean, it's not like they're easily mobile, but it can move after it's been installed on a cement, level pad or the like.
We can move to like the far side of town, the farthest side of town.
Did they have any, when you looked at these at the library conference, did they have any information on how well those stand up to weather? How often they're vandalized and that sort of thing? Or they're freestanding and you can use them anytime, but are they protected from all that other bad stuff?
That's a great question. I did have a chance not only to talk with the the representative for Envisionware, but while I was there was a director from a system in Oklahoma, and they were looking at purchasing either their fourth or fifth item. And they have not had theft, I mean, they are very sturdy. Theft is, or vandalism on that part, very difficult as far as breaking into them, the way the security on how they're set up. They are also, the mechanisms that have been developed with the automatic branches have improved quite a bit. And they have a very good track record.
I just want to add, yeah, that it does have cameras. While it doesn't prevent somebody from vandalizing it, it does, deter.
When you said that we're looking at potentially putting it like on the city property that the fire station down south sits on?
We were, at the time, in developing this, we were looking for a place on city property. Believe Ross Gold Park would likely be a better place. They have been installed in malls, so they're indoor and outdoor. They've been installed in malls, they've been installed at parks, in pretty, in northern states, more north, like, I want to say there was one in an external location in Michigan. But they do need to have a cover, a ramada, or a cover on them because they are flat. They have, we haven't asked that question, but I don't think that would be an issue. But the site prep, doing the pad and the cement and the like would be, we would have to interact with the city to make that portion of it work.
As someone who works in the library, and all you two, I'd like your input on what you consider priority-wise, how to triage these choices.
So I believe priority number one is the restrooms. It does see the most use, and it has been a while since, they've been updated. During our refresh, that was the one thing that didn't get refreshed. So I do think that's priority number one. I think roofing and 24-hour library could be our last. Our roofing seems to be holding up okay. The 24-hour library, well, I do think it's a great chance to reach a broader community. I do feel that it's not necessarily priority number one or high priority. The auto sorter is what I would say is my number two. It is coming up on its end of life in 2021. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to continue to function after that point, but it is something that we should have a game plan and sort of be aware of. And then self-checkouts. Our self-checkouts currently work. It would be nice to have an updated system just to make things easier for our patrons.
I appreciate that input. As someone who volunteers in the library, I'd say about 15 to 25% of the time, even though I'm only in there 2 hours a week, the sorter is down.
Yeah, and that is another thing that it is constantly requiring staff to reboot it because it does go down quite frequently. It's not, the worst, but, it is something that we do have to do.
So have you been able to reach out to the vendors that have come do corrective maintenance on the device? Like, if there's still a service plan on it, they should be able to come and repair some of this stuff so it's not going down all the time.
Well, I can speak to that part. Our maintenance plan is with the producer of the machinery itself. Originally, we purchased it through Envisionware, and the company that produced it its name is Supa. And so this last year, we went direct to the producer for the maintenance contract. They have handled all of the mechanical. So what we're talking about going down has not been mechanical. It's the software because the computers are older and they have done the upgrades that we can do.
Just for clarification, you're saying the computers are older, so is there like a laptop or a desktop they're using to interface with it, or is there actual computer, like an onboard system in the machine itself?
Thank you for the clarification. There are 2 desktops. There's one for each input.
So are they, proprietary, or is it just a typical like IBM machine with Windows running on it?
Yeah, it is
Like a HP or
proprietary. I mean,
something?
it is a Windows, but it is from,
From them?
yeah.
Yeah, it's proprietary software. It's running on I believe outdated Windows OS at this point. But we can't upgrade the OS or the software will not
You
work.
can't buy new computers with the newer version of Windows and install the software. You have to get the computer through the vendor.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Because that, I mean, really, it's so much cheaper to buy new computers. If the hardware is fine but the software's screwy, it's a lot cheaper to buy new computers than to buy a new sorter, right? So I think that deserves more looking into.
Thank you. We'll verify that aspect. I believe we've asked that question, but we did ask the question of when we were going through Envisionware and not direct with the current producer. So we'll pursue that part to make sure we have a clear answer for you and get that to you.
If they have white paper or something like that describes it, I'm more than happy to offer my services as an IT guy. I'm very happy to help you out with that. So.
We will not turn that down. Thank you.
So Irmal brought this up and it made me start looking. So the item for the restrooms, is that more the aesthetics and everything like that, or is that going to be, for some reason I'm not seeing it in here, is that going to be handling the issues that we have with drainage and all that? Because as I understand it, there are some plumbing issues that need to be taken care of. Is that contained within that?
That's not necessarily contained in this. That has been an ongoing discussion with Public Works and Facilities. They have an opinion that most of our issues that have caused overflows and the like are all patron-caused. And there definitely is a factor of that. However, it doesn't seem to us that that's the case all the way through. So this was, we had to make sure that this was on the list and going to be considered in capital improvement. This may be a multi-year try as far as how much, funding is available on that part. But so the one contractor that I spoke to, the general had indicated that he wouldn't be able to know some of the issues until they opened up the wall. So that would have to be something that would be built into a contingency.
If you read this, it looks like beautification.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern is that, it's not a pretty restroom. I know that.
Nope.
But I think that first and foremost is the serviceability of that restroom that needs to be addressed.
And I feel like that's what we talked about last time we had this up, was more of the functionality of it and the issues,
Right.
right? Yes. Yeah, that's.
So I don't know if, as you said, they can't assess some of these issues until they open the walls and stuff like that. So it's possible that we need to go back and expand on, what this item actually is and say, while this is going to be a renovation, it's also going to be corrective in nature. At the very least, I would think that we need to scope the main drain. So, but I don't know a ton about plumbing, so that's my thought.
I agree with that. Because I was pretty sure that's what we had talked about before, and that was
Right.
like a.
Didn't it have something to do with the outlet to the street, the sewer?
I remember being
Had nothing.
Diane, what's the deadline for this?
Well, I had to turn these have all been submitted to the city already.
Right.
And they actually have started the process of prioritizing that. There was a meeting earlier today. But the window is not closed, but we don't have a lot of time to get any other updates.
Right, we don't have time for a review process and another meeting and everything like that, correct?
Correct.
So then I think that my question is, to what extent are we able to change the, I'm gonna call it an RFP, to, completely overhaul the bathrooms? Can we make that change in this meeting? That might be a question for council.
That would be changing the CIP.
Because I'm sure that that's a pretty major change.
I think it is a major change, and unfortunately, I'm not able to give you the best answer right now.
Could they prioritize it with the caveat for more,
Yeah, I mean, I think you
more
could,
in-depth scope?
with what you're being asked to do is just to kind of rank the projects. So you could certainly, modify the ranking of the project and to specify within that project that the restroom project consider the operability of the restrooms and the drainage issues you're having and other issues that you're having, and you can put that high on the list. Moving that forward, I'm not sure how that would interact with the rest of the city, but we can certainly you can certainly rank it that way, and then we can take your direction and see what we can do.
Excellent, thank you very much. Because I think that that's, an alteration to the scope of what's gonna go on with the restrooms, I think is warranted. Yeah, but that's just my 2 cents.
So at this point, what is the ranking? I mean, if it's already with the supervisors, what is our ranking going to change?
It is not with the supervisors at this point.
Oh.
It was, the meeting was within the city, but not the supervisors.
Okay. So how is our ranking going to change what they're already working on?
It may not, but on that part, but.
Because they rank it and then decide they don't, so it's not like we're gonna rank it, we're gonna give it to them, who's working on it, and then they're gonna change how it's ranked.
It could potentially influence it. However, there are a lot of factors in how the capital improvement projects are funded, and usually, and I want to say it's almost, it was like 8-1 of how the dollar amount that had been requested to what's available, like 8 million to 1 million. I think it's something like that. So it's there's huge asks out there, and we do compete with fire and public works and city roads. Well, not roads, but road equipment, that kind of thing. So that's the reality part, in all this. But I believe it's still prudent to go in there with our asks and the support for that. And if it's not this year, then we continue to put that forward, because it is, if there's the representation of what is needed for our capital projects, it needs to be brought forward.
I think it still has to be priority number 1, whatever we ask them to do, because that's that important. I would suggest, because there is a lot of competition, that we say that this will be a multi-year project We have no estimate of cost right now because the first thing that needs to be done is a hole punched in the wall to see what the problems are. And then those internal or whatever you want to call them, plumbing problems need to be fixed as soon as possible. Then we can go back and ask for the beautification part. I don't know. I mean, I know they say that the stools are hanging by threads on the wall and are propped up and all that sort of stuff, but that could go a little longer if we can get the drainage problem solved and some way that maybe the patrons can't cause so many clogs. I don't know if there's any such thing or not, but maybe newer fixtures are better built to kind of prevent some of that.
You got to fix the infrastructure before you fix the tile on the wall.
All right, so I'll ask, and we'll start over there, and we'll just come back this way. I'll start with the bathrooms. Who feels the bathroom should be ranked as the first priority? Okay, so everyone. All right, who feels the roof should be second? Third? Fourth? 3 for fourth? Fifth? 2 for fifth? The self-checkout, second? You like it at second?
No.
No? Third?
Yes.
And I'm also on second, actually. The auto library? The satellite library, yeah. Remote library, yeah.
That should be at the bottom.
At the bottom?
Yeah.
So bottom, everyone agrees? Okay. Well, fourth, not the bottom fifth, yeah? Okay. And then the library sorter, that'll be
That should be second or third,
third.
with maybe starting with
Okay, so
checking into the
third.
computer parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like.
You know, if the check-in doesn't work, it doesn't matter what the auto sorter's doing.
Yeah,
One begets the other.
so it sounds like the bathrooms are first. The self-checkout is second. Is that right? If anyone disagree, I did, yeah, that's what I got here. So self-checkout is second. The yeah, auto sorter is third. That's the one I didn't write down. The roof is fourth. And then the remote library is fifth. Good? I don't know how we're gonna make a motion on that, but there you go.
Almost exactly the way that you just did.
And Diane, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is the order that you had them ranked as well?
That's the order that they're listed in, and some of it reflects the time over the 5-year report.
So to make a motion, you could,
Just as listed.
make the motion as listed as it is in the packet. But if you wanted to modify the scope of the restroom project, you should also include that in the motion.
Right.
Okay, what is our motion on that? On the restroom?
Yeah, we make a motion to
Put
approve the
number,
priority of these projects as listed with the caveat that the bathroom project is given. All right, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the priority of these projects as listed with the caveat that we expand the scope of the bathroom project to look for deeper issues beyond just beautification of it, anything plumbing related or whatever.
I'll second that.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. With that, we can move on to item 5B, discussion and possible action on general budget supplemental requests for fiscal year 2020.
Thank you, Diane Baker. For the record, what you have before you, you have seen this in your November meeting where we had brought before you the desire to reclassify the creative learning manager from a P1 to an M1. At that time, you did approve for it to be taken to the Board of Supervisors for the reclassification. In the meantime, former Director Sina Lloyd had a chance to discuss with a couple of the supervisors the best path to take for this. And it was specifically requested that we roll it into the budget process. So what you have before you is the updated information as to how this would play out over multiple years. There's not an immediate fiscal impact, and as you could see in your packet, the fiscal first level that the fiscal impact would hit would be in 2024, where essentially we start being evened out with the M1 to the P1 to the M1. And that's, again, assuming individuals will stay 7-10 years in a position, which could happen. And so what you have before you is just the clarification that we take this through the budget process as opposed to the Board of Supervisors process that had been approved before.
I don't see a difference in any of these numbers.
I'm
So
sorry?
could you re-explain why we are changing from M1 to P1? What would be the benefit to the person who gets hired?
We're going from P1 to M1. That's all right. And actually, this is an artifact that existed as a result of the reclassification studies that were done several years ago. And at that time, the managers in general were all put to an M1, and this particular position, although it wasn't called Creative Learning Manager at the time, was still at that level and did not go into the M1 category like it should have. Part of the issue related to this is that the position of Creative Learning Manager, which is a professional P1 category, it would also be in the position of supervising another individual in the exact same class. The librarian in that department is the exact same class. And so that creates an issue, even though one is unclassified and the other is CCEA. So there are a number of things related to that. And then also going from the P1 to the M1 does increase responsibility for budget and a number of other things. Does that answer what you needed?
Yes, thank you very much.
And like you said, we've already approved the change from the P1 to the M1, and all we're doing with this action item is just saying that we want it to go through budget as opposed to the Board of Supervisors, right?
Correct, correct.
I will make a motion that we change from going to the supervisors for this change for the creative learning manager, that we go through the budget process instead.
Seconded.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. With that, we can move on to item 6, the Library Director Administrative Reports.
Diane Baker for the record. I do have several things for you in the packet. I wanted to make sure that you were up to date with the process of our strategic plan. You have included in your packet the materials that were distributed as part of the first community workshop on February 16th. These are the The discussion PowerPoints and information, initial environmental scans that were done by our consultant, Dr. Fred Steinman from the UNR Center for Economic Development, and also the preliminary information on the community survey. The survey, actually, today is the last day of the survey, so that wraps up, and we should have the final information at the workshop on this Saturday. The workshop, I think, was successful. We had weather issues that day. One of those where we had some of the good old Sierra wave coming through, different waves of snow bands. So it did affect some individuals who had signed up. He did have, I think, close to 40 individuals signed up, and we didn't really quite get half of that. But there was I know Phyllis has said she's interested in coming. Another board member could come without any issues. At this point, we were too close. We wouldn't be able to agendize, so we cannot have more than 2 individuals at that. But there were some very delicious things that were served that helped along the process as well. Well catered on that. Are there any questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. If not, shall we go on to 6B?
Please.
Okay. All righty. So I wanted to bring you up to date with what's going on. I did mention earlier that I had been to the American Library Association Midwinter Conference. It was actually quite a good conference. It was, midwinter is often in places where it is winter, and not too bad. We had exceptional weather, I'd say, in Seattle, at least for the time we were there, but what was really exceptional were the sessions. I was able to attend Libraries of the Future Symposium. We had quite a few very in-depth and insightful presentations, and we'll be discussing some of those tomorrow at our staff development meeting. And on staffing, things, I should have a little light at the end of the tunnel. Things are starting to look really good, especially we have tomorrow starting the librarian in creative learning, Vanna Bells, who had been working for us as a part-time librarian, so we're looking to have her on board. We have an individual coming on board in access services on April 1st. And on the 15th, an update there, we were, at the time I did this, we had were just doing interviews for the senior library assistant to replace Kim Besselow. And we, on the 15th, we will be bringing on the senior library assistant on that. So we are making quite a nice move towards getting things filled there. Also, today we were having a chance to say our fond farewells to Sandy Devaney, who has been at the Carson City Library for 23 years and has been a mainstay of services, especially outreach to all ages of the public. And she is looking forward to quite a number of activities with her time away into retirement. And the other aspect of staffing is the library director position is still remains open until March 14th. At our next meeting, we will be able to bring you the list of applicants. It will have closed at that point. We have gotten a number of applications in, and as you had directed in the January meeting, the postings for the position had gone to the American Library Association, where it's been spotlighted. It's also been put on the Nevada Library Association job list, and the Mountain Plains Library Association, with the information on the job and on the flyer you all had in your packets. And I didn't know if you had any questions on that ongoing, or just with the library director recruitment.
No, I think that we're just still in that beginning process, so.
And as we move forward, Megan McCarthy will be assisting at the meetings with the process going forward. Okay, legislative update. We are in the midst of legislature. There's several dates that are listed there. We will be participating in all of these, the feature days and Library Day at the legislature. March 7th, next week, is one of the first hearings I will be going to for the budget hearing for the Nevada State Library Archives and Public Records. The funding that we get, especially with the state collection development funding, that we have also gotten through the early adopter, where we've gotten the virtual reality. These are parts of the state budget that have ended up being passed through, or at least some of the projects have been passed through. So I'll be going to go and support and continuation of those, because the increase in collection development funding and some of the other added programs were established under Senate Bill 549 in the last session, but were established as one-shots. And last but not least, I just didn't know if this was a reminder a little bit to make sure that you are looking at folding in time to do the public library trustee training on that. And yeah, I would be glad to send out maybe a little refresher and send you the link in an email. So it will be, so you can point and click and get to that. And it is one of the things to help the library be eligible for all the funding and programs that are going to be available through the state library. That is what I have in that part of the report. Are there any questions?
Yeah, could we also get an update on how things are going at the Adams Hub? Because I know that that's not in the later reports.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad you asked on that. So with the Adams Hub, we have, and we includes Amanda Long, and I have had a chance to meet a couple of times with Steve Neighbors, who is the chair, I guess, of the Hop and May Adams Foundation, and also as oversees the hub itself. We've had some really in-depth discussions on the hub and the direction that it needs, that we're looking to take this and to make it successful, not only for the hub itself, but for the community. So it does have an important impact on the community and business development and economic development. At this time, we did have a recruitment for the replacement for Valerie as the business development manager. We completed the recruitment, but we did put that on hold pending the discussions that we have had with Mr. Neighbors. And after some of the discussions, we were looking at the important one of the important aspects is to get the daily operations of the hub on a solid foundation. So we are looking to have a regular front desk individual, which we kept kind of staffing with our student interns, but we do need more reliable staffing there, and also an individual that can handle some basic programming and the like. Amanda, did you have any other comments?
No, I think we're just trying to find somebody who can know how to run the front office and identified some of the other tasks that need to be done by that person and kind of reaching out and continuing with our exposure to the community for the Adams Hub. But they've been everything's been really good with Steve. He's been great at helping us and kind of taking that initiative to take the time with us. So that's been great.
It has been a positive impact or interaction. The one thing that I have been able to do is the office space that we have through the executive startups and the like. We have all but one office now occupied, and there's a potential for the last office to be occupied that as a client that has come in through the incubator. So that will be amazing, actually, if we have all the offices up there occupied. We would still have co-working available and dedicated desks. I think we still have 3 dedicated desks as an option as well. Okay.
Excellent, thank you very much. And then with that, we can go right on into item 6C.
All righty. So the budget information you have in a printed version. You have the smart sheet up on the screen to take a look at. We have gone through the revenue has been increasing with some of the grant funds with the expenditures from, or with revenue also from the Adams Hub. Some of the increase in the revenue there is not only the leases that we have had with the space, but also it's starting to reflect what we have received from the school district to support the new entrepreneur program that is run by Molly Dahl. And going through, you get into some of the parts that are a little harder to read, but you can see the breakdown where we are in staffing, services and supplies. Through the recent budget augmentations, we have adjusted a few of the service and supply categories to reflect what we are truly expecting to expend by the end of the year based on our projections. And going down, grant funds, pretty close to where we're at. The planning grant has been there. I don't think, I was going to say there's no new information on additional grants on that. There was an increase in the travel grant, which that looks like it's just the Nevada Library Association, the NSLA PR grant. Unfortunately, when we name a grant with the city, even if it gets extended to include additional programs, which it also included my trip to the American Library Association meeting, we have it confined to just to the original name. Gift funds, and we are expenditures, we have pretty much reduced or eliminated staffing expenditures out of the gift fund. And the last is with the Adams Hub. And on that, you can see where our staffing expenditures have been and where we are also seeing expenditures for services and supplies. Any questions on that? And the information that you have there is also reflected in the city reports that are further on. As you can see, we are 58% through the budget on that. And a few of the categories we are looking to fully expend, and we always fully expend our book, thanks to Amy's good work, our collections, our book and materials funding. Any questions? Okay. That is the total of what I have in 6C.
Well, thank you very much, Diane. Um, With that, we can move on to item 7, our other administrative reports, starting with our access services update.
All right, Irma Reinhardt for the record. So towards the end of January, I had the opportunity to attend a blockchain basics course at the University of Nevada, Reno. This course was taught by Nate Jones and Robin Moen of Sagebrush Consulting. They basically are help with startups that are interested in blockchains or businesses, government entities that are interested in incorporating blockchain technologies into their organizations. The course lasted for 4 days and covered blockchain, the basics. So what blockchains are, mechanics behind blockchains, and then use cases. So I will try my best to describe a blockchain. So a blockchain is a decentralized distributed ledger of transactions or pieces of information which are immutable, which means the information on the blockchain cannot be changed. So in a blockchain, the transactions occur during a period of time, and then each transaction is bundled into a block, secured with a hash or an encryption key, and then added to the ledger. This ledger is shared among multiple users who verify the information on the ledger and any information being added to it. So the information on the ledger cannot be changed, but can be amended. A common example of a blockchain, and probably the most popular, or the thing that you hear about the most, is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency which is on a blockchain. It's basically a digital cash which can be used to buy things from people or businesses. So in the Bitcoin network, if I want to buy a book from someone, I would send them my Bitcoin. That transaction is recorded into the network. So Irma buys Harry Potter from Amy. And then Amy would receive my Bitcoin. One use case would be Walmart has begun to implement blockchain technologies in its supply chain of produce from farmers to track which farm a fruit or vegetable came from. So the purpose of this was if there was an E. coli outbreak, they could track the offending produce back to the farm within seconds rather than days. And I've included links to each of my use cases. The one I was actually most excited about was in Washoe County. They partnered with Titan Seal to have digital marriage certificates available on the Ethereum network. So this basically allows anyone, anywhere to obtain a copy of their marriage certificate, wherever you are. Before, to get a marriage certificate, you had to send them a letter and they would have to mail it to you, which could take days, which if you are planning on going on a trip or doing something, you don't really have days, you have minutes. So this is helping reduce that time. In libraries, there have been discussions and future planning for implementation of blockchain technologies, such as digital rights management, community-based collections, and record management. So say, in this case, the San Jose State University received a grant from IMLS to research use cases of blockchain technologies in libraries. This was back in early 2018, so they've sort of wrapped up. But that's what they sort of came up with the use cases for. So you're not going to see anything on the local level coming, but in terms of our vendors, our ILS, some of those things might incorporate blockchain technologies. Maybe not today or not tomorrow, but eventually. So I think it's important that we have a basic understanding of blockchain technologies because it may be something that we have to incorporate and use in the future. And I know I did that kind of quick, but are there any questions? I can send you the instructor's contact information if you do have questions about it.
Thank you, Ermal. And if you or any of the trustees or anybody want to geek out and learn more about blockchain, just let me know.
They do have Hyperledger meetups over in, I forget, up in Reno. But basically, Hyperledger is what the Walmart blockchain, what they're using as their blockchain. It's IBM's blockchain, but that blockchain is based off of the Hyperledger framework, which is a product of the Linux Foundation. So lots of long, complicated words.
Now, my question would be, and this might be getting way too into the weeds. So the reason, the motivation for transaction verification for cryptocurrencies is that once you verify, you get a portion of, X number of coins or X percent of a coin as a reward for having done that. When it comes to like the Walmart or tracking food systems and stuff like that, what's the motivation for being a part of the hash pool?
So the difference there is that the Bitcoin network is a public, or is open to the public, meaning you can host a node and verify, and your incentive for hosting that node is some type of coin or gas, depending on whatever. In a private network, Walmart has all the computers set up, so they don't need to incentivize themselves to do it. They're already incentivized. And then the
So it's
farmers,
internal.
yeah, so the farmers that are a part or having to use this blockchain are also incentivized, because if they don't participate on Walmart's blockchain, they're not going to be able to sell products to Walmart. So that's the sort of incentive. There's not really, on a private network, there's not really a need for an incentive.
That makes sense.
So not everything on blockchain is like a ledger tracking things.
Yeah, all blockchain is just a transaction verification system.
Yeah, so in the picture I have, you could imagine, say for a library, we're bundling a whole bunch of patron accounts, and then securing it on the blockchain network. Basically, the information on there is going to be private, accessible only to whoever has access to the encryption key or the hash, which would be a library. So you could theoretically have one library card that's good at all libraries around the world. And, I could say that this library card is good because 300 other libraries are saying it's good. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ermal. With that, we'll move on to the creative learning update.
Hi, Maria Clusta for the record. So I have a couple things that I want to share with you today. First thing being the Capital Maker certifications. We have a new two-step process for that. The first step is for patrons to complete an online training module for the specific equipment they want to use. So the online training modules were actually created by library staff via Niche Academy. So what I didn't mention first off is that we've re-updated the Capital Makers webpage through the library website. So it has all the information in one spot now. So there's links to the actual Niche Academy training videos, as well as a way to book an appointment. Yeah,
Still, it's cool.
yeah. If you want to click the link under the Capital Makers webpage, you could, and I'll take you to it. So there's 4 different tabs, and Amy actually did a lot of the work for that. I just sent her the information to include. So
If you go to that one and scroll down, all of your like getting started stuff I should put on my mic, sorry. All of your getting started stuff is on this tab here. It has the instructions, it has the various equipment here, and this module here has all of the training modules that we have available right in that little box there. So like if you click on one of those, it'll open up the lessons right there. So you don't have to like go out or find it or go somewhere else or whatever. It's all, here's what you have to do, and here's your materials in that.
Yeah, and the training modules include a mixture of videos, quizzes, manuals for people to go through. So they're expected to do this before the second step, which is to book an in-person certification appointment. So then they have that time with an instructor to actually touch the machine and go through different steps to do a basic project. I do think this is really helping with increasing the number of people using that space. Just this past Saturday, I looked at the numbers and 10 people came in. So I think it's really great. And we're working to get more videos listed on there so people can get trained on more equipment. Any questions with that? No. The second thing I wanted to share is about the virtual reality we've been doing at the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada. So for the month of February, staff from Creative Learning went to Boys and Girls Club on Tuesdays from 3 to 5:30, offering up to two 15-minute sessions for teens to sign up for. It's been overwhelming, the response we received from that. We had 10 to 14 kids each day. Some wanted to just watch, others wanted to actually participate. So I thought it was a really great partnership. And we are hoping to partner with them again over the summer for summer learning, possibly taking space-oriented VR programming over there. And that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Maria. With that, we'll move on to admin and grants.
Mike, there we go. On the first part, we've already covered a lot on the strategic planning, but the main thing I would like to highlight is we've welcomed aboard Abby Williams to the admin team. She's taking the part-time administrative clerk, and she has jumped in, hit the ground running, and has become, just within weeks, a very valuable member of the team. So when you come into the library or you might see her around and say hi when you have a chance.
Thank you very much, Diane. With that, we'll move on to our collection development update.
Amy Lauder, Collection Development Manager for the record. As Diane already kind of mentioned, we have some different things going on. First thing though, Haley Swift has moved over to the collection development team so that I can mentor her a little bit more closely with training on cataloging tasks as she learns more and contributes more in that area in the library, which is going pretty good and is going to be very valuable, especially going forward. And also today was Sandy Devaney's last day at the library after 23 years, which is a very long time. So she has been one of our, again, everybody's valuable, everybody's great, but one of our most dedicated Reader's Advisory staff, always recommending books and especially using that in her roles as the homebound coordinator, helping select books to bring to our readers who can't come in, and as our interlibrary loan coordinator. And she's also done many, many other things throughout her time at the library, including story times, mending, and just about anything you can think of, probably. But yeah, she's excited to spend more time with her grandkids and actually sit and read her books. So that'll be good. And then as the other part of my report, I just put in a little bit of information about our customized library services that we use, just as kind of an informational thing. One of the reasons we are able to function on as small a staff as we do is that we do outsource a lot of our book processing to our main book vendor, Baker and Taylor. So that means that pretty much almost all of the books and now video and audio books that we order from them comes almost ready to put on a shelf. We don't have to put on all the labels. We don't have to decide which ones go where. It's all set in their instructions. They do it for us. And then we just have to make sure everything's correct and ready to go and put them on the shelf. So that saves us a lot of time to pay them a relatively minimal cost to do that work for us. And so the picture's just some examples of the various things they do for us. Any questions about either of those topics? Okay.
Thank you very much, Amy. With that, we can move on to item 8, board members' announcements and requests for information. Did any board members have anything that they wanted to bring forward at this time?
So I will not be here next month. I will be on a deployment, unfortunately, so I'll be missing the meeting. And then I was able to, as part of my other job, attend a tour of the Switch facility, which is a IT hosting facility up in Sparks. Really nifty. They actually do a similar project up there as to our Adams Hub project down here. And I got the contact information for their tour guide, and she said if anyone from the library wanted to go, that they could arrange it, so I can get that to you later.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Yeah, it might be a longer day, but gosh, that could be fun for staff development.
Yeah,
too.
it's really cool. A little over the top cool, like you can tell they're playing it up a little bit at some points, but it was really fun.
Did any board members have anything else that they wanted to bring up at this time? In that case, we can move on to item 9, public comment. If any members of the public wish to address the Library Board of Trustees, now would be the time.
As public comment, not listed in any of the others, I wanted to let you all know, starting March 11th, we will be having the Explore Earth exhibit. It's unfortunately got a little delayed. We were hoping to have it delivered by this week. It will be delivered next week. But then we will have the Explore Earth exhibit. We'll be inviting you all to have a chance to come see it, and you'll hear more about it too in an upcoming, since we will have it for March and April. We were initially just going to have it for March, and I guess because of the delays, they extended the time we're going to have it. So you'll be hearing more about that in the upcoming meetings.
Excellent, thank you very much. Seeing no other public comment forthcoming, we'll move on to item 10, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
So, we are adjourned.